I want to see his face when I take what's mine, she smirked, heels clicking like gunshots across the marble floor of the bank. I didn't look up from the chair, just kept reading the front page of a Scientific American someone had left behind. Something about entangled particles behaving unpredictably. Poetic, really. She stormed past the security desk like she owned the building, waving that court order like a queen brandishing a royal decree. Her lawyer trailed her, oily and overconfident, the kind of man who probably practiced smirking in elevators. "We're here for the safe deposit," she declared to the clerk, sliding the paper across the desk. "Court authorized. We'll need the vault opened immediately." The teller glanced at the paper, then at me. I folded the magazine slowly, stood up, and pulled the key out of my pocket. "Box 917, I said, handing it over with the kind of calm you don't earn, you build. She snatched the key from the bank officer's hand before he could even finish his nod, turned to me, and whispered just loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. "It's all mine now. Enjoy," I said, like I was offering her a mint after dinner. She turned on her heel and marched toward the vault, her lawyer hot on her heels, already licking his lips for the billable hours this would rake in. They disappeared behind the heavy metal door with the banker. I didn't follow. I sat back down. I already knew what was in that box. What they didn't know could fill volumes. But that box, that was a table of contents. A single page would have been enough. A few minutes later, a sound echoed out of the vault, the metallic thunk of the box drawer sliding out, followed by silence. And then, not silence. Her lawyer's voice, suddenly sharp, panicked. "Don't touch anything." A pause. Then louder. I said, "Do not touch anything." People in the lobby turned. The bank officer came out first, his face pale. He went straight to the manager's desk and quietly picked up the phone. "Not police. Not yet. Internal escalation." Her lawyer stumbled out next, gripping his briefcase like it might shield him from whatever was in that box. His tie was crooked now, sweat blooming through his shirt. That confidence, gone, replaced by something I'd been waiting to see for a long time. Fear. The last one to emerge was her. No more gloating. No more swagger. Just a single phrase, mumbled under her breath as she walked past me without making eye contact. "What the hell is this?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. But if you're still here, still reading, pause for a second. More than 90% of people never subscribe. It takes you 2 seconds, but for us, it's fuel. It keeps this channel going. Hit the button, and let's keep unraveling. Back to the bank. The lawyer walked over and tried to whisper, but his voice cracked. "What else have you? What else is in there?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "You open the box. You tell me." He swallowed hard. "There are documents, surveillance, images, video. This isn't just about inheritance. This is..." He stopped himself, looked around, lowered his voice. "Where did you get that footage?" "Which one?" I asked. "The brunch with the notary? The hotel lobby conversation with the cousin? Or the time she said she only married me for the estate?" He blinked, visibly calculating whether to walk out or dive deeper. This changes things," he muttered. "Good," I said, "because things needed changing. Here's what they thought they were walking into. A husband hiding daddy's money in a dusty box, waiting to get outsmarted. An easy win. Court order in hand. Get the goods, settle hard, walk away richer. But that's the thing about safe deposit boxes. What's inside is only dangerous when you assume it's yours." She thought she'd opened a treasure chest. What she actually opened was a confession booth. Not for me. For her. I just locked the door and handed her the key. 2 years earlier, my father's death didn't come with tears. It came with silence. Not because I didn't care. I just knew better than to mourn loudly in a room where someone was already calculating what grief might be worth per square foot. The funeral was quiet, tasteful. A handful of friends, old colleagues, and a eulogy I wrote without needing to exaggerate. My father believed in simplicity. He kept his wealth boring on paper. Real estate trusts, staggered payouts, corporate shields with names like Citron Holdings and Altena Group AG. But if you knew where to look, really look, you'd notice the dust trails from the 1980s. Offshore pivots, old bearer bonds from days when that still meant something, and the occasional asset that didn't exactly glow in the IRS light. He never explained it in detail, just left behind a spreadsheet with one locked cell and a note that read, "Only unlock if they come for you." I didn't touch it. Not yet. At first, she didn't care. She didn't even ask how much the estate was worth. No sudden change in how she kissed me. No questions about tax shelters or probate. Just nodded when I said the lawyer would handle everything and went back to scrolling through skincare influencers who all somehow looked identical. But then the rumors started. A distant cousin, one whiskey too deep at the wake, mumbled something about accounts in Zurich. A former colleague of my father's sent a condolence letter and accidentally referenced the Indonesian fund. The real trigger, though, was a voicemail from a trust officer in Bermuda who called the house line by mistake while I was at work. She listened. Twice. From that moment on, she became curious. The first few weeks, it was innocent. How much did your dad leave you? Will you be handling it directly, or will it come through the business? Just curious. I told her the truth. Everything's in trust. It's structured. I'm not touching anything directly. That wasn't the answer she wanted. She started checking my office drawers. At first poorly, like a child looking for hidden candy. I'd find things slightly off. Papers flipped the wrong way, my stapler moved. Later, she got better. Searched my backups, my browser history, my encrypted folders, which she tried to crack using a sticky note labeled Daniel 1234. Eventually, I walked in on her with her laptop open, reviewing PDFs of scanned estate filings she'd somehow pulled from my cloud backup. Looking for vacation destinations? I asked. She slammed the laptop shut. You don't trust me, she snapped, eyes cold. Trust isn't required for inheritance, I replied. Patience is. She hated that answer. That night, she asked to just have joint control over the remaining real estate holdings. It'll help simplify taxes, she said. I told her no. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said it calmly, like someone who already knew the script and who'd decided not to play his part anymore. She stopped sleeping in our bed soon after. And that's when she began her campaign, not for love or fairness or reconciliation, but for access. Small, deliberate moves, feigning interest in our finances, asking about refinancing the cabin, offering to help with the lawyers managing my father's estate. When that didn't work, she got bolder. Installed a keylogger. I caught it within days. She named the install file tax_notes_2022.pdf. Subtle. I confronted her, but gently. You're digging through ash looking for diamonds, I said. But I promise you, what you find won't shine. Her response? You're hiding something. I know it. And when I find it, I'm taking my half. Then came the threat. You think you're smarter than me. But courts don't care about who's clever. They care about what's fair. And finally, the day I was waiting for, when she left a yellow post-it on the fridge, like it was some casual reminder about milk. Filing next week. Hope you've got a good lawyer. Oh, I did. But I also had something better. I had time. And a vault. And a plan she'd never see until it was too late. And if you're wondering whether I hated her, no. Hate takes energy. She was just a riddle I'd already solved. I was just waiting for her to read the wrong answer out loud. The courtroom air was stale with ego. Her side had filled the gallery with all the usual theatrics. Designer folders, dramatic sighs, exaggerated whispers between attorney and client like they were planning to storm Normandy, not dissect a divorce. I sat quietly. No entourage. No notepad. Just me, my lawyer, and a face that didn't move. Your Honor, her lawyer began, rising with all the smug confidence of a man who'd just cornered a wounded animal. We have reason to believe the respondent has failed to disclose physical financial assets, specifically storage containers, safe deposit boxes, and vaults that may contain unreported funds related to the inheritance in question. He made sure to emphasize the word vaults, like it was some kind of punchline. He continued, we are formally requesting a court order compelling full access to any such containers, and legal authority to search them with or without the respondent's cooperation. Her eyes were practically gleaming. My attorney didn't flinch, didn't even bother to look up from his file. No objection, Your Honor. The judge paused, looked over his glasses. You're not disputing the existence of these containers? We're not disputing anything, my lawyer said calmly. In fact, we're prepared to assist. That should have been her first clue. She turned toward me, lips curling. If she could have said gotcha out loud without tanking her case, she would have. Instead, she leaned toward her lawyer and whispered something that made him grin. The judge signed the order without further argument. That'll be effective immediately, he said, handing the bailiff a signed duplicate. You'll be notified of the logistics through your counsel. As we stood, I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded slip of paper. No fanfare, no hesitation. I slid it across the table toward her lawyer. On it, a bank name, a vault number, a signature, and a key. Not a metaphorical one. An actual brass key attached to a small, red leather tab with the number 917 embossed on it. Her lawyer stared at it like I'd just handed him Excalibur. She leaned over his shoulder. Read it. Whispered. That's it, then. That's where he's been hiding it. Her lawyer turned to me, smug returning in full bloom. We'll crack it open Monday, he said. I shrugged. Just make sure you bring gloves. He chuckled like I was bluffing. I wasn't. You know that moment in poker when a player bets aggressively, thinking they've got the hand won, and then someone quietly matches the bet with a flick of the wrist? That was this. They thought they were storming a treasure chest. What they were really doing was walking into a gallery, one I'd been curating for a year and a half. She thought this was her win, that she'd outmaneuvered me. She didn't know I'd invited her to this exact moment. Fed her just enough breadcrumbs to feel brilliant, while I built the walls around her narrative, one asset, one clause, one camera feed at a time. As we left the courtroom, I passed her in the hallway. She couldn't help herself. I told you I'd find it, she hissed. I smiled. You did. But finding it and surviving it. Different games. She rolled her eyes and strutted off, heels echoing like victory drums. She never noticed what I was holding in my hand. Not the vault key. Not paperwork. A small, crumpled envelope with her sister's name on it. I'd been holding it like bait, and she hadn't even clocked it. That was always her problem. She never asked why I didn't fight harder. Because sometimes the best move isn't defense. It's invitation. Back inside the vault, after the lawyer slammed the box shut like he'd just triggered a landmine, the room dropped to a vacuumed silence. He stared at the sealed drawer, chest rising, lips parted like a man trying to solve a riddle seconds after realizing he's the answer. The banker was already on the phone with corporate security. Not law enforcement, yet. But they were preparing for something. No one had touched $1, and still, everyone looked like they'd committed a felony. I need a moment, the lawyer said, voice uneven, and motioned for me to step outside the vault. I followed him into the narrow hallway, the reinforced door sealing behind us with a cold hiss. He didn't speak until we were out of view of the cameras. Then he leaned in, lowered his voice, and said, "There are surveillance photos in that box." I didn't blink. He kept going. Documents. Printouts. Time-stamped transfer receipts. Screenshots of hidden accounts. Accounts under names we now have to assume are aliases. He paused, swallowed, then added, "One's under her sister's name." "Oh," I said, feigning mild surprise. "Which sister?" He didn't answer. "Also," he continued, "there's a video file. I didn't open it all the way, but I saw the preview frame. And she's sitting in a car, talking to someone. Says, verbatim, I married him for the money. I'll leave once I know where it's all buried." Then laughs. I gave him the courtesy of silence. "Why didn't you disclose this earlier?" he finally asked, like he was still hoping this could be undone with some polite lawyer tap dancing. "I didn't withhold anything," I said. "She demanded access. The court granted it. I gave it." His eyes narrowed. "This is entrapment." "No," I replied. "This is documentation." He looked away, lips twitching as if trying to decide between threat and retreat. Then, quieter, "These are forensic grade. Multiple camera angles. Dates match with phone GPS metadata's intact. Where'd you get all this?" I tilted my head. She thought she was playing chess. I built the board. Back in the lobby, she was pacing like a CEO stuck in a waiting room, still convinced this delay was procedural, not catastrophic. She didn't even glance at us when we returned. Her lawyer moved to her quickly, whispering in hushed tones, trying to mask his panic with legalese. But I could see her face change. Her arms crossed, then dropped, her brow furrowed. Her mouth twitched into a sneer. And then she said the line I'd been waiting for. "You're bluffing. You don't have anything." She was wrong. Because the something wasn't even the evidence. It was the implication, the unspoken truth that if I had that, what else might I be sitting on? She thought the contents of the vault would be the treasure. What she never grasped was that she was the subject of the archive. For over a year I'd watched. Not obsessively, just methodically. A quiet subscription to a service that flagged key movement patterns when her phone left the house. A contact at a private firm who specialized in digital shadows, legally gray, ethically darker. One discreet investigator with a lens the size of a match head and a burner laptop. I didn't chase her. I collected her. Every lie, time-stamped. Every alias, cross-referenced. Every transaction, documented. She thought she'd buried things under other names. That her cousin's wire transfer wouldn't be traced. That cash couldn't leave fingerprints. But she never understood how trust funds actually work. They don't grow in noise. They grow in silence. And my father, God rest him, left me more than money. He left me the tools to outlive deception. And now, her entire divorce strategy had mutated into something else, a forensic confession. Authored by her. Archived by me. What's more dangerous than someone who's been lied to? Someone who never interrupted. Someone who simply took notes. And trust me, I took very good notes. There was one item in the box neither of them understood, at first. A matte black envelope, thick with weight, and sealed with a wax insignia that no one uses anymore unless they want you to notice it. Stamped clean across the center was a name neither she nor her lawyer recognized. "Who's G.R. Callister?" she asked, narrowing her eyes, twisting her lip the way she did when she couldn't solve a crossword clue and assumed the paper was misprinted. Her lawyer didn't answer immediately. He pulled out his phone, typed quickly, and froze. That's when her voice lost its edge. "Well," he glanced at me, just for a second, like he was hoping I'd offer an explanation that might let him breathe again. I didn't. He turned the screen toward her without a word. Her brow furrowed, scanning the bio. Retired federal prosecutor. Organized crime task force. Corporate ethics and fraud compliance. Now private. Based in D.C. She blinked. "Why is a federal prosecutor on this?" "Because," I said softly, "he's not on this. He's under it." The envelope wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed for me. Retainer agreement signed 6 months prior. Monthly fees quietly paid through a trust she didn't know existed. All perfectly legal. All boringly documented. And inside that envelope, a manila folder so precisely organized it made her color-coded divorce binder look like a child's drawing. The first page was a cover sheet, printed in clean serif font. Asset exposure and pattern misrepresentation, preliminary report. Under that, a dozen tabs, each labeled by month. A full timeline. Every withdrawal. Every account opened in her sister's name. Every girl's trip that coincided with cash movements and fake vendor invoices. Dates cross-referenced with hotel bookings and car rentals. One tab, marked January, firm event, included a printed guest list and a marked seating chart placing her next to a man she swore she barely knew. Her lawyer rifled through the tabs like he was trying to undo a magic trick mid-performance. The sweat on his temple said it all. This isn't just surveillance. This is a compliance case," he muttered. "With timelines. Source validation. Redacted witness statements." "Correction," I said. "Not redacted. Sealed. For now." She leaned forward, hand trembling slightly, as she flipped to a section labeled Admissions. And there it was. A transcript. Not from a phone call. Not a voicemail. A verbatim transcription of a conversation between her and her cousin, captured in a parked car 3 blocks from our house. It read, "Her. If I keep him thinking I'm broke, I can push him for the inheritance angle. He's slow, but careful. I'll get it. Cousin, is that legal?" Her. Laughs. "Not at all." She looked up at me then, face pale. "That's doctored." "No," I said. "That's notarized." I let the silence hang. The weight of that folder pressing down on her like gravity just doubled. And then came the last page of the file, tucked discreetly into the back. Action recommendation. Delay response until breach of asset declaration is initiated. Allow court-sanctioned access to vault. Advise release of sealed evidence only upon procedural overreach. She read it twice, then a third time. This whole thing was a setup?" "No," I said. "This whole thing was an audit. You just failed it." Her lawyer stood back like the envelope was radioactive. "Do you have any idea what she's triggered here?" he hissed. "Oh, I do," I said. "And so does Callister. That's why his retainer was paid in advance, for moments exactly like this one." And she finally saw it. The thing she'd refused to see for years. This wasn't a man clinging to money. This was a man who'd built a failsafe. A pressure-triggered vault that didn't release wealth. It released truth. And now? She couldn't untrigger it. Couldn't explain it away. Couldn't close the box. She'd opened a sequence she couldn't rewind. And all I did was hand her the key. She always thought prenups were decorative. Like those tiny spoons you put out for guests, but never actually use. She signed ours the same way she signed Jim waivers. Fast, distracted, already thinking about something else. I remember it clearly. We were sitting in that overpriced garden restaurant downtown, the one with the flaming cheese and fake ivy, and she barely read a paragraph. She glanced up at me, grinning. "Clause 14b, she mocked, raising her brow. "What is this, a spy movie?" "It's a safeguard," I said, "in case one of us tries to screw the other using the courts." She snorted. "That would never happen. I love you, dummy." And just like that, she signed. Fast forward to the conference room, present day. Her lawyer's face had taken on a greenish tint as he read from the copy of the prenup I'd placed, politely, on the table between us. Not a word was raised. The walls were lined with books no one ever reads. The AIC whispered like a hospice nurse. She was pacing now, arms crossed tight. Her voice was cracking around the edges. "There's no way I agreed to this," she snapped, finger jabbing the paper like she could physically erase the words. Clause 14b. In the event of intent to defraud, conspire, or coerce through legal manipulation, all marital assets revert to the non-offending party, effective upon substantiation of violation. Her lawyer looked up, swallowed, and spoke without meeting her eyes. "You did sign it." "No," she barked. "No, I didn't read that. That clause wasn't in the version I saw." I leaned forward, slow and calm. "You saw it. You just didn't care. Remember? You said, 'It's not like we'll ever need it.'" She froze. Her breathing picked up. "This isn't enforceable," she blurted. "This is insane. You're saying I get nothing." Her lawyer grimaced. "It's enforceable if the clause is triggered. And, based on what we saw in the box." He didn't finish the sentence. Because he didn't have to. You could see the panic bloom behind her eyes, like a fire alarm she couldn't shut off. The kind of realization that comes too late, when the wheels are already in motion and all the exits are locked. "You planned this," she said, voice shrill now. "No," I said, "you planned this. I just drafted the insurance." She turned to her lawyer, desperate. "We can contest it, right? It's buried in the footnotes." "That's not fair." He was silent. And then came the collapse. She sat. For the first time since this all started, she sat. No threats. No performance. Just a woman unraveling under the weight of her own hubris. Because it wasn't just the clause. It was the realization that she had built her whole case, her whole exit strategy, on the assumption that I'd play defense. That I'd scramble to protect assets, compromise, maybe offer a deal just to get out clean. Instead, she opened a door labeled victory and walked straight into a legal trap with her name already printed on the paperwork. All that scheming, all those phone calls with her cousin, the side accounts, the staged fights to justify a narrative of emotional neglect, all of it had detonated one footnote. Clause 14b. I didn't raise my voice, didn't call her names, didn't even smile. I just watched her read it again and again, each time slower, like if she found a typo, the entire clause might disappear. She didn't, because it didn't. And now, every asset she'd spent the last 6 months positioning herself to take was legally gone. Not in a blaze of courtroom drama, not with a tearful monologue, but with a sign line, dated 3 years ago, on a sunny afternoon when she thought she'd live off my father's estate and maybe upgrade to someone flashier once it cleared. Turns out, flashy doesn't beat legal, and a man with foresight doesn't need revenge. Just a pen, and one very specific clause. She was framed, her lawyer said, voice sharpening now, desperate for traction as the wheels came off. None of this proves the documents weren't planted. Anyone can fake screenshots, edit PDFs. Hell, even that video could be deep-faked. You expect the court to believe she just confessed in a parked car with a hot mic? He looked around the room like someone waiting for a nod of agreement. There wasn't one. My lawyer didn't flinch. He reached calmly into his briefcase and pulled out a slim, navy blue folder. It was unmarked, unthreatening, even, but I saw the flicker in her lawyer's eye when he opened it and noticed the first tab. Bank Surveillance Cross Match, Exhibit E. We anticipated this objection, my attorney said flatly. So we requested subpoenaed security footage from other institutions, unrelated to this box, during the timeline our client was being surveilled. He handed copies across the table. No flair, no drama, just truth, on 60 pounds legal stock, with timestamps that didn't blink. Here we have your client entering the Redwood branch of Easton Fidelity Bank. He continued, flipping pages with surgical precision. That's her at the vault entrance, May 3rd, 10:42 a.m. Her phone pinged on-site within a 30-foot radius. And, this part is fun, we also have 2 log entries showing she accessed 2 separate safe deposit boxes. She's allowed to use a lockbox, the lawyer snapped. Yes, mine agreed. Unless she's using it to shield assets from legal disclosure. Or, say, transferring cash to third parties in violation of a binding prenup clause. Which brings us to the next exhibit. Flip, page after page of still images. Grainy, but unmistakable. Her, walking to a parking garage. An envelope in her hand. Red wax seal visible even through the low-res capture. Next frame. Her cousin exiting a different car, looking around nervously. They exchange the envelope. Hugs. Depart in separate directions. Who's that? Her lawyer asked, a touch too loudly. Identified through facial recognition as Dina Travers. My lawyer answered, like he was reading a weather report. Your client's cousin. She lives 2 counties over. No visible employment history for the past 3 years, yet suddenly making recurring deposits totaling $94,000 across 4 accounts. He tapped the timestamp. Each deposit occurred within 72 hours of your client's visits to non-disclosed vaults. And before you ask, yes, we have the receipts. Also notarized. Also court admissible. Her face was unreadable now. Not angry. Not combative. Just pale. Quiet. Diminishing. Her lawyer pushed back in his seat, hands rubbing over his face. This doesn't prove intent. My attorney looked up, perfectly neutral. Clause 14b doesn't require intent. It only requires evidence of manipulation through concealment. The clause activates once concealment is substantiated. And, he added, casually, we have just one more clip. He turned the laptop toward them. Pressed play. There she was again, grainier this time. Sitting in a cafe, sunglasses on, leaning across the table to a man we hadn't introduced in the courtroom yet. Her voice, distorted slightly by the background hum, but clear enough to punch through. He's careful with passwords, but not with receipts. I've been cataloging everything I can. The prenup's airtight, unless he breaks trust first. That's why I'm keeping my own little nest egg. Just in case. She froze. No denial. No outrage. Just one question, whispered like a prayer. How did you even find that? I didn't answer. Because the truth is, I hadn't gone looking. I just stopped trusting. And when you stop trusting someone, their patterns become visible, like bruises under UV light. You don't need to follow them. You just need to listen and wait. She thought she was pulling a con against someone too slow to notice. But I didn't need to notice. I recorded, archived, and now the archive was speaking for itself, frame by frame, ping by ping. Her lawyer sank back, the fight draining out of him. He tried one last thing, weak and mechanical. We'd like a recess. My lawyer nodded. Of course. Though we'll be filing for judicial disclosure of the full bank footage set before we reconvene. The judge agreed. She didn't even look up. Because by now, it didn't matter how much she denied. The paper trail had become a map. And it didn't lead to treasure. It led straight back to her. By the next hearing, her voice had changed. No more venom, no smug declarations. She barely spoke at all. Her lawyer did the talking now, though even he had lost the courtroom swagger. You could see it in the way his tie had loosened, how his briefcase now sat half-zipped like he was ready to make a run for it. We'd like to propose a private settlement. He began carefully, his words trying to sound professional but weighed down by defeat. My client is willing to forfeit any and all claims to the inheritance and associated assets. In exchange, we ask that no further disclosures from the vault be submitted into public record. Translation, we'll walk away quietly if you don't burn the rest of the forest down. I didn't answer right away, just glanced at the judge, then at the stenographer, who, by then, had already been documenting every previous frame of her unraveling in painfully legal detail. Respectfully, I said, no. Her lawyer blinked. My wife filed for divorce. She initiated public proceedings. Her claim was that I had hidden marital assets and that she deserved half. I leaned forward. So let's give her half. The room went still. I want everything disclosed, I said. Publicly. On record. She can explain how all this came to be. Line by line. Her attorney's mouth opened, closed. Then came the tremble. She has no comment, he said quickly. The judge, who had been watching all of this unfold like someone watching a train inch toward a wall, finally spoke. Motion for closed proceedings is denied. This matter was brought forward under fraud suspicion and asset concealment claims. The public has a right to transparency in such matters. The hearings will remain open. That's when she started shaking. At first, it was subtle, a twitch of the fingers, like she was cold. Then her foot tapped uncontrollably under the table. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but she wasn't listening. She was staring ahead, dead-eyed, because she knew what came next. Not just losing publicly. Within days, the first story broke. A small legal blog published an anonymous expose about a spouse attempting to defraud her own prenup and fabricate a false financial narrative. It didn't name her, but people put two and two together fast. A few lines from a transcript, posted anonymously on a forum, mentioned her cousin's name. That was enough for anyone in our circle to connect the dots. Then came the whispers. A friend from her yoga class texted her, I just saw something about you online. Is it true? Then silence. One by one, her friends vanished. The group chat she used to dominate went cold. Invitations dried up. Brunches she used to host now happened without her, and no one pretended otherwise. But the worst part? Her family. Her mother called me. Is it true? she asked, voice brittle. Did she really try to steal from you? I didn't answer directly. Just said, you should ask her. That same day, her brother, who once begged me to help him refinance his home, sent a text. Don't loop me into this. I have kids. Cowardice always shows up when reputations start bleeding. The next hearing brought press. Not a swarm, not yet. But a few local outlets showed up, quietly taking notes. A freelance journalist tweeted about the case without names, just a few hints. Former tech ex-wife implodes in court over hidden prenup clause. Trust the quiet ones. It got traction. She saw it. And that's when I knew the real loss hadn't even begun yet. It wasn't about the money anymore, or the house, or the trust fund. It was her identity, her public mask, peeling off in real time. She used to walk into rooms and light them up. Now, she was the reason people dimmed the lights. And all of it, because she thought I was hiding treasure in a box. She didn't know the box was just a mirror. And now the whole world could see what was staring back. The ruling came down on a Thursday. Dry, clinical language printed on white linen paper with gold-stamped headers that did nothing to soften the blow. Petitioners' claims, dismissed. Respondents' assets, retained in full. Clause 14b, upheld. She didn't show up for the verdict. Sat in a car outside the courthouse, staring through the windshield like it owed her an apology. Her lawyer, now visibly withering under the weight of his own choices, walked out alone, tugging at his collar like the air had gotten thicker. He wouldn't even make eye contact with the reporters. Just muttered, no comment, and ducked into a cab. As for me, I walked out with a copy of the judgment and exactly zero joy. Because this wasn't about joy. This was closure by scalpel. Not long after, the court finalized the division of assets, or more accurately, the lack of division. I kept the house, the lake property, the holding company, the revenue shares, the remainder of my father's trust, and the structured funds feeding into it. She got her car, a 2018 Audi I paid off 3 years ago, and debt, lots of it. Her own legal fees were just the start. The forensic audits unearthed undisclosed credit cards, loans taken out in her sister's name, and quiet little investment experiments she'd made without telling anyone, using my tax ID. All under review now. But that wasn't the worst part. Because the envelope, the one addressed to G.R. Callister, retired federal prosecutor and ethics consultant, that chain reaction hadn't stopped at court. Callister, methodical to the bone, had submitted a formal inquiry to the district's white-collar crime division. Not dramatic. No TV moments. Just a file folder delivered with a signature and a polite cover letter. Evidence suggests a calculated attempt to defraud the legal system through falsified financial declarations and strategic asset obfuscation. Recommend review under Sections 203A and 410 of State Financial Code. 3 weeks later, I got the call. She'd been charged. 2 counts, attempted fraud and false declarations under oath. Not felonies, yet, but serious enough to trigger financial audits, restricted travel, and a requirement to surrender digital devices for forensic review. When she found out, she tried to call me. Blocked. So she called her lawyer instead. He declined to represent her further and filed a motion to withdraw due to ethical concerns and unreconcilable direction of case management. Translation, she's radioactive now. You could feel the shift. People she once intimidated now gave her polite distance. The barista at her favorite cafe forgot her order twice. Her stylist canceled indefinitely. Mutual friends started calling me instead, some to apologize, others to confess they'd always suspected. She didn't just lose the case. She lost the narrative. No more carefully curated Instagram captions about resilience and finding herself. Now she was that woman, the one who tried to scam a prenup, got outplayed in court, and might be facing jail time over her own signatures. What made it worse? She couldn't blame me. Not really. I never yelled. Never retaliated publicly. Never smeared her name. All I did was hand her a rope. She tied the knot. She kicked the stool. And I documented the fall. This wasn't revenge. This was chess. And she'd mistaken herself for the queen. But queens don't get cornered by pawns. They get checkmated by players who knew the board from the beginning. She showed up on a Wednesday. Hair pulled back tight. No makeup. Oversized sunglasses that didn't belong to her face anymore. The banker recognized her. How could he not? Her meltdown 2 months earlier was still being whispered about in staff meetings. She spoke quietly this time. No waving court orders. No smirking lawyer at her side. Just a single request. I want to see the contents of the vault again. Alone. The banker looked at her, hesitated, then nodded. You'll be supervised. She didn't argue. He led her down the corridor, The same sterile hall she'd strutted down with heels like hammers, back when she thought the vault held her golden ticket. Now her footsteps barely made a sound. Inside the small vault chamber, the officer opened the drawer with the same key she once snatched from my hand like it was a winning lottery number. The lid creaked open, exposing all the quiet violence that had wrecked her life. Stacks of indexed documents, time-stamped images, certified transcripts, a hard drive labeled Declaration Repository. Everything that had turned the tide. But that wasn't why she came. She sifted through the files like someone looking for a photo of themselves in a house fire. And then she saw it. At the very bottom, a cream-colored folder. Thicker paper. Handwritten label in cursive, personal. No tab numbers. No notary stamps. Just her name, in my handwriting. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, the first thing she saw was a photo. Us. On our wedding day. She was laughing in it. One of the rare, real ones. No filters. No calculation. Just her, in the moment, head tilted back, my arm around her waist. The kind of photo you frame. We never did. Beneath it, a receipt. The prenup. Signed. Dated. Notarized. Same table. Same pen. Her initials in the margin, next to clause 14b. She'd drawn a little heart next to her signature, like it was cute. At the very bottom of the folder, a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. No header. No signature. Just one sentence. You wanted what was mine. I only protected what was never yours. She didn't move for a long time. Didn't speak. The banker watched through the glass wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Eventually, she sat. Just sat. A woman who once built a whole identity on appearances now reduced to silence by 8 words written in blue ink. She cried. Not loud. Not for attention. Just small, crumpling tears, the kind that don't ask for comfort because they know they don't deserve any. There was no rage left. No loophole. No audience. Because this wasn't a defeat delivered by force. It was restraint. She thought I'd ruined her. But I hadn't. I'd simply kept the door open and let her walk into the truth she wrote for herself. And the final irony? I never changed the box. Never added that folder after the fallout. It had been there the whole time. Waiting. Because long before she filed. Long before she lied. Long before she laughed at clause 14b and told her cousin she'd bleed me dry. I already knew. I knew what kind of ending she'd write for herself. All I did was preserve it. And hand her the key.